What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be replacing the starter from the lower section of the car. If you've been following the manual swap, you'll know that we basically, up until this point, we've taken everything out. We have the transmission off, we have the flywheel off, we have the drive shaft and exhaust system, all that good stuff off. So if you're following the manual swap, this is the step that you would be replacing the starter. If you're not following the manual swap, you would have to get the transmission and all that good stuff off first to be able to replace the starter from underneath, like the way we're doing. If you want to replace your starter, there's basically two ways to do it. You can pull the transmission like we're doing here, or you can pull the intake manifold off. For those of you guys who would rather pull the intake manifold off, I have an intake manifold removal video. I'll put that in the description along with a replacing the starter video from up top. So we're only going to need a handful of tools here. I have a 8mm deep well and short well, a 10mm deep well and short, and I have a 13mm deep well and short. And I'm more than likely going to be using a variation, a combination of those to get it done, along with a 1/4 inch driver. Now, we are going to be working in some tight spaces, so a 1/4 inch, smaller wrenches are definitely going to help. You probably could do it with a 3/8, but it is a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, so you're going to have a little bit less room to work with that wrench. So I'm going to be sticking with 1/4 inch ones for here. And because we're in a little bit of a tight space back there, the intake manifold is on, and so I'm not going to be able to get me putting these on camera and taking them off. So basically, it's going to look like this. The intake manifold is going to be like here, along with some other wiring and stuff. So I'm really going to be wrenching from behind to try and get these guys off. So I'm going to go through a little bit about what's going on here. So there are 4 wires running to the starter, right? So that is not one of them that runs to the actual housing. We're not going to mess with that. We have a 13mm here. Now you have 2 power lines, 2 main lines that are going to come in, one from each side, and those guys are going to go on with the 13. We have a little 8mm here on the left side of the starter that's going to go on, and then we have a little 10mm on the right side that's going to go on. When we're up there, we're going to be pulling basically these off, the wires off, then we're going to pull the starter out, put the new one on, and then just basically stick those guys back on. Because the transmission is already off, we don't have to remove any of the transmission bell housing bolts like you would if you're replacing it from up top, because the transmission's already off. So it's going to be a little bit of a trick. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get of me replacing these and getting these nuts off on camera, because it is going to be tight and because it is kind of pretty high up and at a weird angle. So basically, you're really just going to have to feel for it. Now, something to note, these guys are sized, the hole for the wires are sized for a 13, and this one's sized for an 8. Basically, this one is only going to fit on this one, and the 13 is only going to fit on here, and the 10 is only going to fit on here. So you can't really get these two mixed up. If you put the 10mm on this one, it's going to have a lot of play in it, and you won't even be able to fit the 8mm on there. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting those guys swapped, because they are different sizes. Just make sure when you pull the old starter off, you don't lose where they are. Alright, so here's basically the back of the engine. Now, for those of you guys who wanted me to do a rim and seal replacement video, I will not, because this one is in excellent condition. So I am sorry about that. You guys will get a rim and replacement video eventually, just not today, because this one is looking beautiful. So from the back of the engine, we go up to the block. Basically, this is the starter. So this is the front end of the starter. Basically, all the wires I was talking about is going to be way back up here. I'm going to try and angle it up a little bit more. That's about as good as it's going to get. And so basically there's all the wires I got to pull off and work with. So as you can tell, it's going to be a little bit hard to get all these guys, getting them on and off on camera, because it is so far up there and back there. It's just going to be a little bit difficult, but we're going to try our best. Alright, so I'm going to go after the 10mm one first. Alright, so there's our 10mm one. Alright, here's our 13mm. Our 2 wires, like that. I'm going to rotate the starter around like that. And our 8mm guy is going to be right there. And there's our 8mm. Alright, and then that guy is going to come off. And then our starter can come out. Nice. Alright, so basically from here I'm going to install the new starter basically in the reverse order. So here's our 10 millimeter guy, here's our two main guys, and then our 8 is right up here chilling. So I'm going to basically install it in the reverse order, so 8 first, then the two 13s, and then the 10. And I'm going to be taking the nuts and washers off beforehand, and we'll thread them on as we put our wires on. Alright, so we're going to take it up. Going to be our 8 millimeter. This crush washer goes on, and then his nut goes on. As tight as I can with my finger, with a wrench. Alright, be sure to get them tight, but don't murder them. So now I'm going to rotate it this way. Let's get our two main 13s going here. 1 and 2. Get our crush washer on the back. And then our nut behind that. That is on there. And last but not least, we got our little 10 millimeter guy. So he slides on. Get our crush washer on. And then our nut. Get him on good and tight by hand. And then we'll get him nice and tight with the wrench. Alright, there we go. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze, but with the proper tools, it's not that difficult of a job. Be sure to keep your old starter. You can turn that back in for a core and get your money back on that, or you can just sell it aftermarket. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it fresh, and I will see you guys later.